The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Hello everyone. Today on Aging Horizons, we're going to be talking about suicide prevention with a very special guest who we love having come talk to us, Carl Roston. You know, it's a big deal in Montana. Our suicide rates are pretty high, some of the highest in the nation. We need to know about it, we need to know the signs and when to intervene. So today, please join us.
I think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
Don't forget, today you're going to Grandma's house.
Oh man, I better grab a jacket. It's always so cold at Grandma's house.
I know, honey. Grandma and Grandpa are having a hard time keeping the house warm lately with all the medical bills.
Oh really? Are they gonna be okay?
I think so. They're going to ask Energy Share for some help.
Energy Share, helping Montanans facing energy emergencies. 1-888-779-7589.
We've been married for 57 years, and we've always been very, very close. And Bessie fell and broke her hip, and we put her in the nursing home. And I wanted to get her out of there in the worst way, because we married for better or for worse, and we're going to stay that way. And the personal care that comes in here and gives us a hand is equally as important as I am to her. Personal care is the answer to it all, and without it, we couldn't do it.
Good care is your right. In Montana, there's over 11,000 beds in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. If you or a family member needs assistance or help in obtaining information about care issues and placement options, call 1-800-332-2272. If you or a family member need information about Montana's long-term care resident rights, or if you need help solving a problem or a complaint about a nursing home or an assisted living facility, call us at 800-332-2272.
Hello everyone and welcome to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm your host, Kimmy Everman, and as I said in our open, we're going to be talking about a pretty important subject today, suicide prevention. And with us, a really wonderful guest who's come to our show many times and brought us great information is Carl Roston, and Carl is the Suicide Prevention Coordinator for the state of Montana. Carl, welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's, as I said, it's always good to have you here because you really help us understand how important this is. And let's talk about that because, you know, even though they can be grim, so the statistics don't lie.
No, matter of fact, they're our most powerful tool to kind of paint a picture. And this isn't just an issue in Montana. I mean, nationally, over the last 20 years, there's been a 30% increase in the number of suicides. Nationally, we're jumping about 1,500 to 2,000 every year. And in Montana, we've had about a 38% increase in that same period of time.
Wow.
And we currently have the highest rate of suicide in the nation. And it's a rate that's double the national rate.
So why is that? I mean, we've talked about that so many times, but why is it that Montana has such a high rate?
Well, it's important. It's not just Montana. It's the Rocky Mountain region.
Okay.
8 of the top 10 states are in the Rocky Mountain region, right down the Continental Divide. And so there's a number of factors that are unique. And the thing that a lot of people don't understand about suicide is that it's not like we can do one thing and it's going to fix the problem. This is a multi-level, very complex issue, and there are multiple factors in play, and many of them at the same time. And in the Rocky Mountain region, especially in Montana, we have issues like social isolation. We're a rural state where we don't have easy access to services, but we don't have crisis response. It's a little harder. Being a northern state, we have vitamin D deficiencies because of a lack of sunshine, and vitamin D deficiencies are correlated with depression. We have some of the highest populations for suicide in our state. Veterans, our American Indians, and middle-aged white men have the highest rates. We have major issues with alcohol abuse. I mean, we're number one in the nation in alcohol consumption per capita, DUIs, alcohol-related death. We have issues with lethal means. I mean, we're a gun state, and that's nothing more than an issue of access.
Right.
I mean, if you have access, it's 93.
Makes it easier. Yes.
93% of the time, if someone uses a gun, it results in death. We have stigma, which is a huge one, as far as that cowboy hat mentality. We don't want to talk about our problems. We think depression is a weakness.
Right.
We have a lack of behavioral health resources. We have socioeconomic, even altitude. We know that altitude, I mean, it's not a coincidence that all those states are right down the Continental Divide.
Right.
So we know that altitude affects our mood as well.
That's fascinating. I guess I didn't really ever think of that, but all in that line. We're all sort of suffering from the same sorts of issues in a lot of ways. And also, one of the issues that we talk about a lot is seniors, because they're quite maybe predisposed or not predisposed, but this may be something a senior is going to have trouble with.
And some specific things with our senior population: undiagnosed depression, chronic pain and chronic health are major issues. And it's predominant in our elderly men. About 85% of our elderly suicides are by men.
Oh dear. And also what you said about the crisis response teams, because we really, in our maybe even in our big cities, I don't know how good it is, but we're really in need of more of that here, right?
It is, but definitely we need more. But when we take a look at the rural piece of that, is that there's, if you go to the middle of the state or the eastern part of the state, I teach at the Law Enforcement Academy, and when I work with a lot of these county sheriffs, they'll tell me that it's an hour and a half or 2 hour response time for a 911 call.
Wow.
Depending on where the call comes from.
Right.
And so, that's not only access to services, but crisis response.
Right. And oftentimes that crisis response can mean the difference between
absolutely life or death. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and I am always sorry to hear that these statistics are in Montana, but again with you, we have to always look at this and not sugarcoat it, because it's a huge difficulty for us.
Right, and that stigma, and I'm glad you said that, because that stigma piece, I think, is one of the biggest factors, but it's also the one that is modifiable. We can change that. We have to start to talk about this issue. We have to start to learn the warning signs, because we know if we do, you can recognize and prevent suicide. Right. It's still one of the most preventable forms of death.
So if we're talking about it, can we start in our families and just have these conversations, just put it out on the table?
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about, when we work with primary care, family history. To know your family history about it, make sure your doctor knows. But also, early screening. Right now, the national recommendation, and one that we promote, is universal screening starting at age 12. Early identification has the best prognosis. Right. And if we start to ask the question, we start to have the conversations, we're going to be able to address this issue.
And I think when you mentioned that, I just thought, at my physician's office, they ask me those questions, a few of those questions, every time I come in. And I do think that that's very helpful. Do you think docs are getting on board with that?
They are, and that's something we've been pushing about the last 2 years, is for the universal screening, and that it's being pushed at the primary care level as being the next vital sign, that, every single time you walk in.
What a great idea.
Yeah, that every time you walk in, you get screened, and it can be as simple as 2 questions.
Right. Exactly.
I mean,
very simple. And it's not lengthy, and if something is wrong, they'll help you. And if not, they just want to make sure they're checking in. That's how I always look at it, and I feel better knowing that they've checked in with me.
Yes.
Well, as I said, we always have to have these sort of grim reminders, but then we're going to get on to what we can do about this and how we can get involved. And so, folks, please don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about some signs and how to intervene and how to keep your family and friends safe if you think something is going on. So please stay with us. We have a lot more to tell you about.
Crackling fire, good warm. Forest fire, bad warm. Keeping the home fires burning, good warm. Watching the home burn, bad warm. Your family deserves the kind of warmth that comes from being able to pay the heating bills. Whether you're a homeowner or a renter, the Low Income Energy Assistance Program may be able to help. Call today to find out if you're eligible. We can help you get comfortable with winter's high energy costs.
Montana is a very rural state with very small communities, and I think it's very important that we get it out in those smaller communities that yes, our older adults are having falls. It's very important to prevent these falls, and now we have a program, Stepping On, that can help them with that and teach them to have a better quality of life, live longer independently by themselves or with their spouses. We can use the Stepping On program to help prevent those falls and to make people's quality of life better.
I'm Attorney General Tim Fox. Nowadays, all of you have to worry about cybersecurity. Something as simple as visiting pirate websites can put your computer at risk. Hackers use pirate websites to infect your computer and steal your ID and financial information, or even take over your computer camera without you knowing it. Don't let hackers into your house. Be careful with the websites you visit and warn your kids on how to stay safe online. To learn more, visit my website.
You sure you can see?
Yeah.
Are the headlights on?
Yes.
Do we need chains?
No.
Need to slow down?
You know, you're probably right.
Winterize your vehicle, then winterize your mind. Stay clear of snowplows until they pull over, and it's safe to pass. Drive safely and arrive alive.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're here talking with Carl Roston today about suicide prevention. Carl, again, great to have you here. Now listen, let's talk a bit about warning signs, because I think one of the things that I've learned from you over the times that we've been able to interview is that there's plenty of warning signs that we can pay attention to if we just have them up here. Tell us about that.
Well, and what's important is about 3/4 in Montana, 74% of the suicides, the people gave warning signs.
Oh, wow.
And some of those warning signs, we use a mnemonic called Is Path Warm, and I is ideation. They start to communicate an intent of dying. Very seldom is it going to be a direct statement because of the stigma. It's going to be an indirect statement like, I can't take the pain anymore, it doesn't matter what happens to me, everybody would be better off without me. Then often we see a change in substance use, and that is from about 15 to 65. Either they start to use when they never used before, or they use more and more. They start to pull away, they start to isolate from people, they stop communicating, they have a change in mood. They start to withdraw. They start to have, they can have irritability or anger where it's out of character for them. And many times sleep, there's a change in sleep patterns, and it can go either way. Too much or too little. Any change in sleep. They often start to engage in higher risk behavior, and that could be multiple things. It could be gambling, it could be reckless driving. We see reckless driving a lot. So but overall you see a change in their character. And the important thing that if you see these warning signs, do not ignore them. It's many times people think there's a myth out there that, well, people who talk about it won't do it, and that's false. Once a person communicates intent, you usually have a behavior within a week.
Wow, that's quick.
So, yeah.
And I don't know if you, one other thing that I was thinking about is, isn't there often giving away possessions and such?
You can see, we see that a lot with adolescents, where they start to give away prized possessions. In the elderly, it may be revising their will, settling a sudden urgency to settle their estate. Also, both with adolescents and elderly, a deterioration in personal hygiene. They stop taking care of themselves. And it's out of character.
Sure, because they just don't care. And also, I did want to just speak to the chronic pain issue as well, because I really do believe that that's probably a big part of this, is it?
Absolutely. Nationally, about 20 to 30% of all suicides, there's issues of chronic pain or chronic health. Montana, it's about 35%. 53% of our vet suicides have issues of chronic pain, and it's a major issue in our elderly, chronic pain and chronic illness.
So aside from suicide prevention, we need to do a better job with that, obviously.
Absolutely.
But, okay, so let's say that we've seen some of these signs. Carl, what do we do about it?
First thing is you have to ask the person, are you suicidal or are you having thoughts of killing yourself? There's a myth out there that people think if I bring it up, I could put the idea in their head. There's not 1 ounce of research to support that.
They're thinking about it, they're thinking about it.
And so asking somebody if they're suicidal actually validates their pain. It opens up communication. It offers hope. It lowers impulsivity. You can do no harm by asking somebody if they're suicidal.
That's just great, because I was going to say, you mean you really put it out there that, bluntly, but your explanation is perfect.
Yeah, and so you ask them if they say yes, you ask them if they have a plan. The more detailed the plan, the higher the risk. And then the big thing is to we call it persuade, but you're telling the person, I don't want this to happen. Let's get you some help. I'll go with you. No secrets.
Right.
There can't be any confidentiality when it comes to suicide. We have to tell other people. And you never leave a suicidal person alone. And you take them directly to help. And that help can look different depending on where you are in the state of Montana.
Okay.
But if you have an ER, you take them to the ER.
Okay.
You take them to your primary care provider or mental health. If nothing else, if you live in Tudop, Montana, and you don't have any of the above, you call 911, because when we train all officers that when they do a welfare check, they know how to do a crisis interaction and suicide arrest assessment.
That's wonderful. I was going to ask you about that when you mentioned that you teach at the Law Academy, because I think those first responders really need this information and training to be able to do an effective job.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Well, and I guess once you've had these conversations and stuff, Carl, one thing I have always wondered about is if you go to the ER, what happens? What do they do?
Well, it depends on the ER, but usually the doctor, if they will do the assessment, a quick assessment, and we actually train primary care. There's suicide risk assessment tools that can be used. And many times if there's an initial indication, they call in our larger hospitals, they call in a crisis response worker who's a specialized in crisis responses, mental health professional who can come in and can do a thorough assessment to determine level of risk and then can indicate what level of care is needed. It may be that they need to stay the night or maybe referral to an outpatient setting or maybe started on some medication if that's appropriate. Sometimes they may have to make the decision to do an involuntary commitment where the person needs to stay at the hospital or be put in a behavioral health unit for assessment. And some hospitals have that may also include being placed at the state hospital at Warm Springs temporarily.
That's a very sort of that doesn't happen tons, right?
No, very rare.
Because what you were describing didn't sound frightening to me.
No.
You go, you get an assessment, someone talks with you, and you are putting it out there.
Yeah, we always talk about whether they're at imminent risk. I mean, if they're at really high risk, we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that nothing happens.
Right. Well, thanks for explaining that and bringing clarity to that for me. Folks, I hope you were interested in that piece as well, because it's not terrible. You're not going to be taken away. You're just going to get somebody to help you out. So we have more to talk about. Stay with us.
With as many as 1 in 10 Americans at risk for Alzheimer's or some other form of dementia, chances are someone you know and love will receive that diagnosis. When that happens, you may well feel devastated, but know that you are not alone. Help is available. You don't have to face dementia by yourself. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
Final call from like 566.
Hello, gentlemen. May I see your Montana Real IDs?
IDs? Why, I'm Captain Meriwether Lewis.
And I'm Captain William Clark.
Hang on, I see more than one William Clark.
It's the real me, I promise.
Discover more at mtrealid.gov. Available now.
Montana Real ID. It's the real me.
And me.
Suddenly I couldn't speak.
I knew something was wrong. I called 911 immediately.
My arm didn't hurt, it just stopped working.
I knew the signs of a stroke. I called 911.
Know these warning signs, and if they happen to you or anyone with you, call 911. Treatment within 3 hours from the start of symptoms can make a difference. Stroke is a major cause of disability. It is also highly preventable. Learn the signs and act immediately. For more information, call 1-888-4STROKE.
You mean I can get help paying my prescription drug premiums?
Let me get this straight. I could be eligible for help with my family's prescription premiums even though I own my own home?
And our assets won't be counted.
If you're a Montana resident enrolled in the Medicare prescription drug program, you could be eligible for help paying your premiums. Call or visit the Big Sky RX website today to find out, even if you think you're over income.
What do you know about that? I'm eligible.
Hi folks, and welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're here with Carl Roston, Montana's Suicide Prevention Coordinator, talking about what happens during welfare checks, if you go to the ER, just some different things that are part of what happens if you need to reach out because you're suicidal. Carl, again, welcome. You know, in the last segment we talked about what happened if you maybe went to the ER, and you know, it wasn't that awful. You just kind of get somebody that's going to give you some support.
Same as any other medical issue you may have. If you're having a heart attack, they would take care of it. I mean, it's the same type.
And there you go with the stigma too, because I really believe that. It is no different than having diabetes or high blood pressure. It just is a different part of your body. Now, before we move on to resources though, I wanted to ask you to explain a welfare check to us, because I hear about those frequently, and that's where the police go to a home or whatever. Tell us about that.
Sure, and so if you're worried about a neighbor or family member or someone that you think may be at risk, you can call your local law enforcement and request a welfare check. And one of the, at the Law Enforcement Academy, our officers, I believe, are some of the best trained in the country, especially around mental health issues. There's a program called CIT, Crisis Intervention Training, where that trains officers when they arrive at a scene to be able to quickly assess whether they're dealing with a mental health issue, domestic violence, sexual assault. And then in addition, they're trained specifically by me, and it's what's called QPR, which is a way of intervening with someone who's suicidal, recognizing the signs, and also we have a program called Mental Health First Aid, which teaches the fundamentals of mental health. And so when they get a call and they can come in, an officer can go to a scene and quickly assess whether they're dealing with a mental health issue, as someone who's at crisis. And what they would do is then they can make the decision whether the person needs to go to the ER or to the nearest crisis center. And most of the time it's an ER, where then they're evaluated by a physician or the crisis response team in the community.
Again, doesn't sound like anything that's so frightening that we can't do this.
No, absolutely
not. And also, I would say, as a caregiver myself, it doesn't sound like something that if I did it, it would be something that would the person would feel terrible about, because it's very supportive and helpful, and especially the training that the officers get, that's a well-rounded training.
Oh, absolutely.
And so they're not showing up and just dragging you away. They're trying to give you resources and support. Great, thank you. And speaking of resources, what should we be looking for? When I was preparing for this interview, I looked online. You have a great website.
All right,
I think we want to put the website up on the screen so that people can go there. Tell us a bit about it.
Right. Well, so on our website we have a number of resources. We have resources for primary care. We have resources for children and adolescents. We have resources for college-age kids, for your LGBTQ population, for our American Indian population, for veterans. We also have a great video. There's a youth prevention video that's done by the Mayo Clinic, because most parents don't recognize the signs in their own kids because we lose our objectivity.
Sure.
But two other resources that are really critical is we have 2 crisis lines.
Yes, I want to talk about those.
And one of them is the 800-273-TALK, and that's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And if you call that, it goes to either Great Falls or Bozeman. So it does stay in state, and that's 24/7. And people can also call that if they're worried about a neighbor, or if it's themselves that are in trouble. because they're crisis workers who then can assess the situation, and they can bring help to those people as well. Right. We use, if you're a veteran, you hit 1, it connects them to the VA crisis line.
Oh, for heaven's sake, so you don't have to call a different number.
Right, it's the same number. And of interest, Congress just passed a bill where that's going to be turned into a 3-digit number pretty soon.
Great.
And so, it's like a 911.
Right,
and that's going to be national.
Right.
The other one, though, that we have found to be highly effective is that, especially with young people, they don't like to talk on the phone, but boy, they can text.
Right.
So we have partnered with the National Crisis Text Line, and they can text MT to 741-741, and a crisis counselor comes back in within 3 to 5 minutes and starts an interactive text, and they can do the same thing as far as initiate what we call active rescue. They can bring help, and we work with all of our cellular companies so that we can triangulate a call if necessary, that we can find, if a person's making the call, we can help find them if needed. We've had incredible success in just
I bet you have.
2000 for the Lifeline, the 800 number. We had a 43% increase in the volume of calls in 1 year from 2017 to 2018. And
sad but wonderful.
It is, because people are reaching out for help.
Exactly. Yep.
And since we started with the crisis text line, and since from 2016 to 2018, we had a 105% increase in the volume of calls. So the good news here is that people are recognizing this, and they're starting to reach out for help, which is a wonderful sign.
Well, and I think what's wonderful is on the other side of this, you all are reaching these folks where they live.
Right.
Because someone else might think the texting idea is silly or whatever, but it's not, because the whole generation of folks coming up, that's how they communicate.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you about the point about where they are, because we originally started that because we were getting a high volume of calls from northeastern Montana on many of the reservations. Kids were reaching out for services or help before we even knew it. And so it's a great resource for
It sounds wonderful. And Carl, I just want to say thanks for all you do and all the folks that you network with, because this is such a big issue. I always enjoy when you come, even though it's a tough subject. Yeah. But I always learn something and always feel a little bit better about, reaching out or talking about it or bringing it up with someone. Right. Because I totally agree with you. That's the difficult part in this state. So, well, folks, this has been a great show. We really always love having Carl with us. Really helps us educate you and ourselves about suicide prevention, keeping us all safe. Let's do that and get that percentage down in Montana. For Aging Horizons, I'm Kimmy Everman. Thanks for being with us today.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.